What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since 2003 and starting to get cautiously optimistic about this Pistons team. In today's video, I want to take a moment to reflect and predict on the Pistons starting lineup to date and going forward. As of right now, the Pistons, when fully healthy, have retained mostly the same starting lineup throughout the entirety of the year, which is Cade at the 1, Ivey at the 2, Hardaway at the 3, Tobias at the 4, and Duren at the 5. So I just kind of want to talk about how I think that has been going and if it's worth looking at tweaking it in any sort of way going forward. So the first player that we do need to talk about that could potentially find their way in the starting lineup before the end of the year is going to be Isaiah Stewart for a couple different reasons. The first reason is because Isaiah Stewart has played very, very well. The Detroit Pistons have had their best defensive rating with Isaiah Stewart on the floor, and their offensive rating with him on the floor stays about where it is regardless of who else is out there. So I think there's a real world where Isaiah Stewart does take over as the starting center over Jalen Duren going forward, but I wouldn't exactly bet on it, and that's for a couple different reasons. Number one, Jalen Duren is a lob threat, which helps Cade in a way that Isaiah Stewart can't be. Jalen Duren is just totally capable of sitting in the dunker spot, catching a lob after Cade penetrates, or coming and setting a screen, rolling hard off of it, and going up for a lob. And that vertical spacing does go a long way, especially when Cade is on the floor, because Cade is able to use that to his advantage and also open up the rest of the floor, because when Duren's rolling to the hoop, that lob is a threat. So teams do have to play that a little differently than when someone like Isaiah Stewart, who is great, but not a great lob threat, is rolling to the hoop. But all things considered, our defense has been much better with Isaiah Stewart on the floor than Jalen Duren. So I don't know. Maybe it is worth making that trade-off for the two and pushing Isaiah Stewart to the starting lineup. But I don't think it really matters all that much anyways, because they both play about 24 minutes a night. So I really don't see a world where their minutes are changed one way or the other. And at that point, it's really just about fit. And I kind of like the fit of having Duren out there to be that lob threat for Cade to start off the games. The second player that I think does have a chance to find his way into the full-time starting lineup is going to be Malik Beasley. And this is a tricky one. It's a tricky one because I would argue Malik Beasley has been the second best Piston this entire year. Of course, Cade got to be first. He's probably going to be an all-star. After that, you can make an argument for a couple different players, but I would argue for Malik Beasley because he has been that good and that important offensively. Right now, I don't think that there's a real reason to push him into the starting lineup because he's playing practically starter minutes off of the bench. He's playing like 30 minutes per game, and him coming off of the bench when Ivey or Cade need to go make their first breather just kind of makes sense. That's the way that I would put that. And yes, you could swap him out for Ivey, or you could swap him out for Hardaway, but doing that then turns either Hardaway or Ivey into that guy who's going to be the first off of the bench. And as of right now, Malik Beasley is able to fill that role in a great way, and he also is getting like starter minutes, so I don't think that he minds one way or the other. So it is kind of a weird situation when your second best player is a guy who is coming off the bench, but I think right now for the Pistons, that is what it is, and I really don't think it's too important to make him find a way into the starting lineup just because of the way that things are in that aspect. The last guy I think does have a real chance to become a starter this year is going to be Ausar. And this is a really tricky one because the way that he would potentially get in to that role would be taking Tim Hardaway's spot. Do I think that Ausar Thompson is a better all-around player than Tim Hardaway right now? I don't really know, because Tim Hardaway provides a lot of things like floor spacing that Ausar doesn't, but Ausar provides something different than anybody on our team besides maybe Holland in a way, and that's just being a great perimeter defender and all-around disruptive defender. Tricky part about it is, if you're going to promote Ausar to starting small forward, that almost means that you also have to bring Stewart in to be the starting center, because having Ausar start the game with Duren is kind of a disservice to Cade, because that just cooks his spacing. And that spacing that the offseason additions like Tim Hardaway Jr. have been able to add is one of the reasons why Cade has been able to elevate his game to all-star level. So this is almost like a 2-for-1 deal, because if Ausar comes into the starting lineup, in order for that fit to make sense, I believe that Stewart would also have to come in for Duren and probably be spotting up a bit more than he has right now. So I don't know how I feel about all of this, because I really just don't think that it really needs to happen, because I'm content with the way that the Pistons have been playing and the rotations that Bickerstaff has been rolling out. But it is pretty strange, because I think that you could make a legitimate argument that the Pistons' second best player this season has been Malik Beasley, and he's coming off the bench. And I also think that you could make a pretty fair argument that Isaiah Stewart has been the third best player for the Pistons this season. Now, I don't know if I agree with that, but I could see why somebody believes that, because our defensive rating and just everything related to that side of the floor has been that good with Isaiah Stewart on the floor and in the middle. So if you wanted to tell me that you believe that Cade is the best player this year, Beasley's the second best player, and Stewart's the third best player this season so far, I wouldn't really argue it. But two of those guys come off the bench. So I do understand why some people would be eager to have those guys shift into the starting lineup. But I just don't think it's necessary, because I think that JB Bickerstaff has done a really good job of managing the minutes regardless of who's starting. I've been pretty impressed with his rotations. I think that there's a couple times where maybe something will be like questionable in my eyes, but not nearly enough to be upset with it, because all in all, I think he's done a good job. So I'm in no hurry for the Pistons to adjust their starting lineup, but I totally understand why this is something that is top of mind for a lot of people and a pretty big topic for Pistons fans, because of the reasons that I mentioned, and that's that some of our best players are currently coming off of the bench. But in order to get some of them into the starting lineup, you're sacrificing other things that might not be a great fit. So the way things are right now are totally fine by me. But if Bickerstaff does happen to make a few changes, I will trust in him, because I think that he has done a great job so far on managing that aspect of the team. And I do believe that he'll come up with what's best for the team. And as of right now, I'm pretty happy with how things are anyways. So let me know what you guys think. Is there anybody on this Pistons roster that you would rather see in the starting lineup than who currently is? Let me know, and we'll catch up soon.